Yes, I know. I know. DC Fontana is a woman. You've told me a million times, along with the rest of the internet. I told you when I did the research, gender didn't come up, a picture didn't come up. It just said writer.
You didn't know DC Fontana was a woman?
Jesus. What are you talking about? You already knew this. You saw all the comments. Anyway, you ready to record?
Are you ready?
Yeah. Let's get started. Josh?
Hey, Alex, you ready to record?
I thought you got rid of Q&A, Josh.
Yeah, about that. He actually went missing.
Missing.
Yeah, after our last conversation, I went to go get rid of him, and he was just gone. I honestly thought maybe you took it upon yourself and you got rid of him when you left.
Josh, I know what you're talking about. He's right back there.
You saw him?
Yeah, I just had a whole conversation with him. He's right back there. Probably not a big deal. Well, Josh, we're back again with whatever this is, and instead of Star Trek or Firefly, we did a trailer reaction for M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin and was totally blown away by it. And I think you brought up, you know what? We should do an entire discussion just about M. Night, all his films, his legacy, his good times and bad. And because he's kind of an anomaly of a filmmaker. Like, he's like one of those few writer-director ones that, do and produce all their own stuff, like Tarantino, but doesn't have, like, all of the, home runs that Tarantino. He's kind of like, I've listened to his interviews, he's kind of like a regular dude, like, when he talks. Like, he doesn't seem like, some directors are, like, crazy or whatever. Like, a simple, down-to-earth guy who just, like, makes movies. It's weird.
Yeah, if there's one thing about him you got to give him credit for, it's that at least it seems that he doesn't care what anyone thinks. And he will fund his own movies, he will do whatever he has to do to make original films, and regardless of what you think about any of his movies, you have to at least respect that, As far as doing a video on him like this, I think the fact that we have almost completely stopped doing trailer reactions, just not our thing, nothing wrong with them, but when the new trailer for Knock at the Cabin, which is releasing, came out a few months ago, I was like, if we're going to do a trailer reaction to any teaser, like, this seems like the perfect one up our alley. And it was a very good teaser, didn't reveal too much. I'm excited to see the movie. He's not my favorite filmmaker or anything, but it always, anytime you see his name, it piques your interest, whether that's good or bad or, whatever you think of him. No one has no opinion on M. Night Shyamalan that's a movie fan, I feel like.
Yeah, he's not like a hired hand director to come in and, like, fill in for someone else's project. Like, everything is his for the most part, always. Do you know he was, like, in early talks with Steven Spielberg to write the fourth Indiana Jones film?
Really?
Yeah, it's like, can you imagine? How different would that look if it was written by him?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that movie actually, but just from what I hear, I don't think it could have been much worse, probably.
Yeah.
Just from the general consensus.
Yeah, but you know what? He co-wrote the screenplay for Stuart Little, so I'd put that on top of everything else.
Yeah, great movie. So yeah, we're going to be talking about all of his movies today for the most part, whether we have nothing to say or a lot to say. We'll vary through all of them. But, in our Patreon segment, one of the things we're going to be talking about is kind of our plans for the future this year on the channel. And I think it's safe to say that things like this are definitely in our plans, more stuff like whether it's a director, an actor, a movie series, whatever it is, just, spotlighting different things that we want to talk about that aren't necessarily just recaps of what we do on the channel. So I think M. Night is a great one to do first because he has a very interesting filmography that we're going to go through here. We're doing just the films that he's directed, which is still a long list, but we're not doing anything that he only wrote or produced like Devil or anything like that, just his directing credits. So we're going to start off here with his very first film, Praying with Anger from 1992. I had not seen this movie before we went to go do this, so it was my first time watching this, and you have not seen the movie, correct?
I have not seen his first two, no.
So the first one, I'm not going to have much to say, but what I will say is it does not feel like, both of his first two movies actually, do not feel like the M. Night that you typically would know from The Sixth Sense and beyond. They're very different movies, and they actually both really focus on religion and skepticism of religion and the tension between religious people and non-religious people. And he actually is the star of the movie as well.
Oh, that's great.
So as I'm sure we'll talk about all of his different cameos in his films, but this
Mm-hmm.
one he is the protagonist. And unfortunately, like the movie's not streaming anywhere. I had to just find it on YouTube in like a 240p quality. It looks like someone bootlegged their VHS, you know. So it wasn't the greatest quality watching it, and it takes place in India, and a lot of the people are speaking Indian or have thick accents, and there's no captions available on the video I watched. So it was a little bit of a rough watch in that perspective, but I'm pretty sure this movie cost like $15,000, and it was basically a student film that got a release.
Yeah, it was like his NYU, film movie, right? Or his school movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his parents like funded that one. I think.
Yeah, I think so. And surprisingly, it wasn't like, it didn't look like, oh, I know this is a student film. I mean, it looked professional. His direction and everything was still, it was good. It was solid. Some good shots in it. I liked the music in it. But overall, it's just kind of a repetitive scene after scene of like, he goes to India because his father has recently passed away, and both his parents, he's from there, and his dad lived there, I believe, and so he goes there after his death to kind of like discover more about the culture and everything, and every scene is basically just like him confronting someone in that country about the religion or the culture in some way, and it is really cool to see, and he gets like even into some fistfights and stuff about it in the movie, but overall it is kind of just like a wash and repeat of that conflict over and over again. It was a fine watch, but I'll never watch it again, and I wouldn't consider it like, a famous M. Night movie that you need to watch.
Everyone has their first something, Can't all be winners,
Yeah.
especially your first one.
Yeah, but it definitely wasn't like bad in any way. I mean, it wasn't, you could go into it and be like, wow, this is like, I don't even want to watch this. But no, I mean, it was engaging, it was entertaining, I enjoyed the watch. So it actually was a little bit surprising. Then he didn't make another film until 1998, his first debut wide release, studio release, which was called Wide Awake. It was a film with Rosie O'Donnell playing a nun, believe it or not. But the main character, is a 10-year-old named Joshua. And again, it surprised me because not what you would expect from him. This is just like a slice of life movie where Joshua, as a 10-year-old boy, is going through the 5th grade, and he goes to a private, I think it was a Catholic school, some type of Christian school, and he spends the whole movie just like questioning, is God real? So again, very heavy religious tones to it and skepticism tones, and he's basically going around, and everyone in his life is, of course, don't question your religion, trying to sway him away from that, but his grandfather is passing away, and it just makes him question, what happens after life. And for a slice of life movie about a 5th grader, it was surprisingly very emotional. Robert Loggia is in the movie.
Robert Loggia.
And he has a scene with the young boy where the young boy is asking him, like, how do you know something's going to happen after you die and you're not just gone? And it was a surprisingly emotional scene with a lot of weight to it. It is a bit cheesy, it works up the hammy score, like you'd see on Full House or something, and it's a bit of a watered down gloss over the movie where it's not like really serious and dramatic. But for just like a nice 90-minute little film, I actually surprisingly enjoyed it. I probably won't ever watch it again. But going into both of these first two films, I was like afraid they weren't going to be good at all because I've heard nothing about either of them. And they both surprisingly were like about subject matters that are very deep and serious, and I enjoyed them.
I think from what you said about those two, I bet it definitely had some religious tensions in his house. He was born in India, but it's just because his parents flew back there just so he could be born there, and they flew back like right after he was born.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and all of his family members and siblings and whatever were like doctors, and they wanted him to be a doctor, but he's like, no, I'll become a filmmaker. So I'm sure there was definitely some resentment a little bit.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Have his parents funded it, and he's showing resentment about them in the film. That's pretty funny.
I wonder where the Christian resentment comes from, though. I mean, I don't want to say resentment, but maybe he just thought that would appeal to a wider audience for his first film. Like, oh, make it about Christianity instead of like Hinduism. I guess that makes sense.
Now, watching those two films, because the next one is Sixth Sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one that blew up the world. Like, watching those first two films, can you see like, okay, I can see how he went to the sixth, like, basically where you got, they have Bruce Willis and all these stars in there, like how he went. I mean, that's pretty, there's two, okay films, and then The Sixth Sense, it's like I don't know, it just felt like he boomed out of nowhere. Like, after watching those two, like, could you see, like, okay, yeah, it makes sense, or what is it, a huge jump?
Yeah, and also Sixth Sense only came out the year right after Wide Awake. So my guess is, without doing much research into that, my guess would be things were different back then. So he wrote the script for The Sixth Sense and used his Hollywood connections from his first movie and everything, and probably just got it into the right people's hands to be like, oh, this script is crazy, like let's make this. And I don't know if Bruce Willis just read the script and liked it, or how that came about. But have you seen The Sixth Sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched it for the first time for this, but of course, I've known the ending forever. I mean, you can't grow up in the 90s, 2000s, and not know the ending of The Sixth Sense. We're spoiling all of his movies, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of pop culture references to The Sixth Sense and, spoiler, that he's dead is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But even watching it, I still think it holds up. I mean, knowing, the gimmick.
Yeah, it's just a little bit disappointing, and there's nothing that I can do about it, but it's just one of those things where I think the movie does kind of heavily rely on that twist, and you not knowing it, at least for your first watch, and knowing it becomes obvious to me, but the reason it's obvious to me is because I know it, so it's like, it's supposed to be for when you rewatch it after finding out, oh, like, look at that.
It's one of those movies where it's even better for a different reason on the rewatch.
Exactly, but I didn't get to have that opportunity, so watching it, for just as an example, the scene where he goes to dinner with his wife, and obviously he's dead, but she's not talking to him at all and can't even see him. Knowing that he's dead, watching it, I don't think it had that same effect that it would on an original viewer.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So. But you can notice little things, like when he sits down, he doesn't touch the chair, he doesn't touch the check, he doesn't touch anything. And I was watching the behind the scenes on it, and there's a lot of color connections with the dead, whenever there's a connection, there's red in the scene. Like when he goes up the stairs and there's the ghost in the cabinet or whatever, he has his red sweater on. The one scene that I can never forget is the one girl that was killed by her mom, feeding her the poison or whatever. At the funeral, she's in this bright red dress and shit. So little things like that I like.
So what I found really surprising was, so the movie obviously follows Haley Joel Osment's character as this kid who can see dead people, and Toni Collette plays his mom, which you told me about. And I was like, I didn't know that. And Toni Collette, to me, my first time seeing Toni Collette that I was aware of who she was in Hereditary, which is one of my favorite movies. So then I've gone backwards with her. So now it's what was she in before this? And I've watched other stuff she's been in. And so her being in this was pretty wild. I don't think she didn't have much to do, but it's she didn't turn in a classic performance or anything. But the best scene in the movie to me is the ending scene with her and Haley Joel Osment's character in the car, where he finally tells her that he can see ghosts, and the story he tells her about her mother and everything. And that emotionally resonated with me much more than the following scene, which is the actual ending with Bruce Willis. But that's probably because I just already know that he's dead, so it's not that much of a shock. But that relationship with the child and mother resonated with me much more than the relationship between Haley Joel Osment and Bruce Willis. I thought going into this, the whole movie was going to be them two, but they're not really together that much of the movie. There's the scenes with them together, but I don't know, it was not what I expected from that aspect. So I liked the other stuff that I didn't expect, but then the traditional things I was expecting, there just wasn't much there as what I thought there was. So it was a little bit of a weird experience watching it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of early cheesy trailers for action movies at that time, and how this movie is not in that category at all. How do you even hype a trailer? Early night, hype trailers. See Bruce Willis, it's
this summer, Bruce Willis fights ghosts.
Just shots of Bruce Willis walking. I mean, this is a very literal, just walking and talking type film. Not much happens, but it works.
So then up next, we have Unbreakable, also starring Bruce Willis.
Yeah. I was watching behind the scenes on it, and M. Night described it this whole movie is just the first act of a superhero film. No act 2, act 3. The entire thing is a stretched out one act. I'm oh, that's interesting. It ends like a based off a true story movie. It cuts to a freeze frame of Bruce Willis and
Yeah.
It's this isn't a true story. Why did it end like that?
Yeah, I watched this for the first time a few years ago. This might be my favorite M. Night movie. And
it's great.
As far as twist endings go, I also think it's one of the best twist endings.
In a comic, you know how you can tell who the arch villain's going to be? He's the exact opposite of the hero.
Yeah, but he has a good line. It's now because I know who you are, I finally know who I am. Because
Yeah.
the whole like evil can't exist without good, good can't exist without evil. He's been searching for.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of this guy just being unknowingly a superhero, and he doesn't discover it until he's like 45.
Yeah, and I also love his realization when he finds out that, he has superpowers and he's like, oh, I've never been sick before, and it's just like, I don't know. It is kind of cheesy and ridiculous, but I don't know. It worked on me. Like the first time I watched it, I'm like, his slow realization that he like has these superpowers. I think that's a cool idea. Like you referenced that you would have them your whole life, but you just don't find out until you're a middle-aged
Yeah,
man.
you haven't been put in those situations. Like it doesn't just happen.
Yeah, and I love maybe my favorite scene of the movie where his kid, who's already convinced that he's a superhero, has the gun
Oh,
and he's
God,
gonna
yeah.
shoot him.
He told me what he thought about your father. It isn't true.
I'll show you.
And as the viewer, you basically know at this point, like, he has superpowers. So you kind of know if he gets shot, like, he's going to be okay. But still, the tension that Bruce Willis is able to build in the scene and convince his son to not shoot him, might be my favorite scene. I'm like, that was amazing. That was awesome.
This also takes place in Philly. Like so many of his movies take place in Philadelphia because I think he grew up there, so it makes sense.
All right, and then up next, 2002. This is the first M. Night movie I ever saw because I saw it as a kid in theaters, and that is Signs.
Ooh, I do remember it scaring the hell out of me. I'm sure the alien looks ridiculous now, looking back. But like when they're watching it on TV and just the tension of like you don't see it.
Like, yeah, I'm sure the CGI doesn't hold up, but I honestly feel like for people our age, of our generation, that was like the most infamous, terrifying scene to see in a movie as a kid. I mean, I remember seeing it in the theaters, and that was creepier than anything else that happened in the rest of the movie. I mean, the whole scene with the door and like the fingers under the door where he cuts him off and cuts the alien's fingers off, like that stuff was scary too, and the ending obviously, but like for some reason that news footage, it just seems so realistic, like a kid's birthday party, shaky cam, and then you just see the alien in the background. It's like, oh, that is terrifying.
I like the scene where they all have the foil hats.
Tinfoil
on.
hats. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of iconic shots in that one. And I feel like this is also where like the split happened of M. Night, where you still have the people that like Signs were like still, with him, big fans, but some people started to not like him with Signs.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like it was like some people started not to, and then it was like as he went on, it just started to grow and grow of more people kind of falling off the train, as we'll get to here. But up next, The Village. I wanted to watch this movie. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch it, but I know the ending. I've always known the ending. Actually, it was actually Robot Chicken that spoiled it for me when I was a kid.
Hello? That was a really weak twist.
But go ahead. You watched it, so
I loved this film, and I wrote a whole bunch of notes about it. Star-studded cast, like holy shit. 2004, Adrian Brody, like just shortly after his Oscar winning, he plays like a mentally challenged older adult, and it's so weird to see him like play that role, like kind of like knowing who Leonardo DiCaprio is and going to watch Gilbert Grape for the first time. It's like, oh, that's fucking scary. Sigourney Weaver, William Hurt, Joaquin Phoenix, Bryce Dallas Howard, Brendan Gleeson from Banshees of Inisherin, Judy Greer, Jesse Eisenberg. It's like everyone was in this film. But here's a little fun facts for you. Bryce Dallas Howard and Judy Greer also played sisters in Jurassic World, and they play sisters in this. So what are the odds of that? Bryce Dallas Howard and Cherry Jones, she plays one of the elders. She's also they're in an episode of Black Mirror together.
Oh.
Yeah, so like she looks so familiar, and I looked it up. It's like basic premise is that these people are stuck in these. It's meant to take place in like olden times, and at the end, spoiler, you find out like these people, just council of elders, and basically they spoiler obviously, like they formed. The one dude's rich, so he has this whole like animal sanctuary, and he just cut it off, like no visitors, and he just lives there under the gimmick that it's like in the 1800s, and like they've had kids there, like they grew up in the sanctuary, because every single one of them had like a terrible tragedy, and it's a cool reveal where it's like they start saying things that aren't in the old-timey ways, like, oh, my brother was shot outside of an apartment, and you're like, I knew the twist, but it's like, did he say apartment? And you start to realize, like, oh, that's why they're in here. And there's the M. Night cameo. It's the coolest cameo I've ever seen by a director. It's kind of like a POV shot. We don't know who the security guard's talking to. It's like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And like the guy secretly opens like a glass case with the medicine, and you see M. Night in the reflection. I'm like, oh,
Oh, that's
yeah,
it.
like the reflection of the glass. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's a cool cameo. But yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I knew the twist too, but I didn't know how I didn't know how it played out or anything.
Oh God, I think this is when it started to go downhill. Lady in the Water stars our boy Paul Giamatti, and also Bryce Dallas Howard. She plays the Lady in the Water, but M. Night himself isn't just a cameo. He's like a pretty regular character in there. And Jeffrey Wright from The Batman as of recently. So basically, Paul Giamatti plays this guy named Cleveland. He he's like a maintenance man for this hotel building. And then he's got like a stutter. And then all of a sudden, like Bryce Dallas Howard shows up. He's getting complaints from the pool guy, like, hey, someone's, putting stuff in this drain, someone's clogging stuff. And just finds Bryce Dallas Howard. And it's so dumb. I mean, the whole thing, so weird.
So, what do you think is better, Lady in the Water or American Splendor?
Oh God, American Splendor, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I never watched this. This one was, I think you're right, because this one I remember, I was still a kid, at the time, but The Village came out, it was kind of split, and then when this came out, I remember people like instantly being like, this is really bad. And so I stayed away from M. Night after Signs all the way up until The Visit. So like 15 years later almost. I didn't
Wow.
see any of those movies because every time they would come out, I would just hear they're bad. And obviously I should form my own opinions, but I was also growing up at the time and like was a kid, so I didn't care as much, But going back and revisiting these, is this one I should even watch, or should I just skip this one completely?
I'd watch it for Paul. I'd watch it.
Yeah.
And just like, there's little things in there. Like he has like one of the tenants, like the newest one is like a film and book critic. There's like a meta moment. It's worth a watch. It's interesting.
All right. And then, so, okay, I lied. I did see The Happening. This one is, this one's was a little bit special. I don't know.
A little bit special.
I don't know if I've met anyone who hasn't seen The Happening. I mean, I think I watched it at our friend Nick's house, friend of the channel. Our friend Nick's house, like we rented it or something one night. So I think that's where I first saw it. But man, this movie I remember being everywhere when it came out. People were freaking out about this, and of course now watching it, I mean, I don't think it's the worst movie in the world, but is there some really, like, suspect parts to it? Like, yeah, especially the acting and some of it, the whole sequence with the old lady, in the house. The whole time it's like groups of people get affected by this thing, but then the old lady just gets affected, and Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel don't when they're in her house. Like, it's all just kind of fast and loose with the idea. Cool idea, but yeah, weird-ass movie.
Yeah, cool idea. I think that's why I liked it when I first saw it in 2008 when I was, fucking stupid. But I bought the Blu-ray. I saw it at the store. I'm like, oh, I gotta watch this. I gotta watch the behind the scenes. I gotta see if maybe this was like a Malignant. Maybe this was like a joke. It wasn't. It was played for serious. I'm like, oh my God, it's the worst performances. I mean, I love Zooey Deschanel to death, and the year after this, she did like my favorite movie of her, 500 Days of Summer. Perfect. But she is so terrible in this. It makes no sense. And I was laughing so hard, the scene where they visit the house and it's all boarded up. It's like, oh, please, sir, we just need... like the one kid, like the same kid from like Dr. Seuss is there. He's like, open up, you pussies.
Oh, Spencer Breslin?
Yeah, like the other kid's like, come on. And then like, you just hear an old voice, you're going to let the gas in. Door opens up, just a gun.
Yeah.
Just boom, like full shot to the chest, and Mark is like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
God. My favorite scene of it though probably is the scene with John Leguizamo, when they're driving through the town, all the dead people, and but he's trying to be like, don't roll down the windows, because at this point they figured out that it's something in the air or whatever. But then he looks up and he sees the tear in the top of the car, and he realizes like, yeah, we're all fucked. And then the car rams into the tree, and he gets out and just starts slitting his wrists. I'm like, that's a good sequence. If only the movie had more of that.
Yeah, that was good, and that's the thing. He's the best part of the movie. He's like the only one you can tell is trying. Like, all of his stuff came off genuine.
But it did give us one of the best movie memes of all time. The, what? No. That'll always live in history.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
Did you watch The Last Airbender?
I did not know.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. So that's the only movie. I never watched the Avatar anime, so when this was coming out, I had friends excited for it, but I had no reason to see it, and then I heard it was terrible, so I'm like, okay, well, I'll never watch that.
Yeah, I've seen a good amount of episodes of The Last Airbender, but like with that movie, it's like as soon as it came, even before it came out, it seemed like everyone knew it was gonna suck, and apparently it did. So I'm okay with not watching.
And it's also his only like unoriginal movie of. I think Old is based off a short story or something, but like Avatar or The Last Airbender is obviously an adaptation. So I don't know why M. Night would be the guy to make it. Just very odd choice. Maybe he liked it. I don't know. But then we got After Earth.
Oh,
this
okay.
was another one. I
Oh,
remember
God.
becoming a meme before it came out. Will Smith and his son Jaden, and just the trailer looked ridiculous. I never saw it, but
I don't know, dude. When I saw the trailers for this, like I was kind of hyped.
Do you know where we are?
No, sir.
This is Earth.
But yeah, directed by M. Night, screenplay is by Gary Whitta and M. Night, and the story is by Will Smith. Yeah, it's like Will Smith's story.
M. Night, listen to this.
So yeah, it's a nice little story about this distant father and this son who needs his dad, and Zoe Kravitz is in this in like flashbacks because she was killed by an Ursa because she told Jaden Smith to like hide in this like scent chamber, like couldn't smell him, so she just watched his sister die. So the whole thing is about proving himself that he could do this, blah blah blah. I gotta give credit, it's like at this point, like missing the dartboard. He just keeps missing but he hasn't stopped. He's like, just gonna keep making my movies, and it's like people don't even want to fund him at this point. I think this is when people are like, okay, dude, you gotta fund this on your own, which leads us to
The Visit. So The Visit was the first movie that I was like, okay, I'll give him a chance again. And I was, older at this point and had graduated high school. And it was like, oh, M. Night's making, he's going to stop making the blockbusters. He's going to stop making the big movies. He's just making a small POV horror movie. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll see that. And watched The Visit, and I think it's fine. There's stuff about it that I think is cringe, like the boy with his freestyling scenes. Like, why is that in the movie? It's supposed to be like character development, but it's just really awkward. The whole storyline, again, with the boy about like the poop fear, and like the old man wiping the poop on him. Like,
Yeah.
come on, did we need that? But the idea is nice. It's original. It's a little bit of a stretch, just like all of M. Night's movies. When you find out like how things play out. Have you seen The Visit?
Yeah, I've seen The Visit.
Okay.
I loved it. I saw it for the first time like at my dad's place in 2015. Just like, oh, just pop this on. Like, POV. Catherine Hahn, she's in this. Yeah, it's another fascinating idea where it's like she's so separate from her parents, that just trusts that they get off the train station, they'll be picked up by them. But when you find out it's not her grandparents, I start thinking like, wait, how do they know to be at the train station at that time? Maybe there was notes in the fridge or something.
Notes on the fridge, exactly what I was thinking, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was in the movie. I'm just saying that's exactly my thought.
Yeah, and then like the realization that the performance Catherine Hahn gives when it's like, that's not your grandparents. It's like, bro, like
Yeah.
that whole, because it works an idea like, oh, our grandparents are just deranged, maybe that's why it was separated from
Yeah, because they didn't know them either.
Yeah, but then when you find out, it's like, no, it's two mental patients. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea. It was good. Good twist, done well. And Catherine Hahn, I agree, like for doing like a FaceTime, like her whole performance is over, a computer or whatever for the most part. She does pretty well. I also like how the little girl is pretending to make like a documentary or whatever. So you have like these sit down interview scenes, which are, some of the best ones.
A nice little change in pace for M. Night there. I think that was the upswing to what's next.
Yeah, I think Visit had like a pretty good reception. It was financially pretty good, but then Split came out, just the year after, right? Yeah, 2016. And I'm pretty sure it was like a January movie too, or early on in the year at least. And it just like, everyone loved it. It was really successful, and obviously the twist at the end, connecting it to Unbreakable. But even just the movie on its own, the thing that has to stick out is James McAvoy, his performance.
Unreal. That scene where he like picks him up in the car, like it's fucking James McAvoy. We saw him in like X-Men like twice already, but like him in this, it's like he he went in some places, man. He went to some places.
Yeah, also has Anya Taylor-Joy as the main girl.
I think her second film. I think her first one was The Witch. And
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, it's like bam bam for her.
And the opening of the movie has always creeped me out when she's at the mall or wherever with her friend. They're not really her friends. They kind of treat her like shit, but with her friends. And then when they go to leave, and James McAvoy just comes up and knocks him out and just takes him in broad daylight.
Yeah, he just sits in the car and
Pardon me, sir. I think you have the wrong car.
Like that whole scene was creepy. It's like because I think it was like the friend's parent like was the original driver. Or
Yeah, and he
something.
knocked him out. Yeah.
Yeah, so she just turns. It's just fucking just some dude. Just
Yeah, and I love sequences that are like sometimes things happening in broad daylight are even scarier than like the things at night because like if someone could just kidnap you like that in daylight, who knows how realistic it is, but seeing it in a movie, it's pretty scary. But yeah, I do like Split, and then of course when I did see the movie in 2016, I hadn't seen Unbreakable. I saw Unbreakable, shortly
oh yeah,
after.
I didn't see it either.
So me in the theater.
Like, why is Bruce Willis here?
Yeah, Bruce Willis. Oh, what was his name? And it just shows Bruce Willis. Mr. Glass. Just me. I think I heard one guy behind me like, oh, from Unbreakable.
Yeah, it's like Unbreakable is like a movie that like no one never knew it existed. Like no one talked about it, like until Split came out. It's like completely forgotten about.
And for M. Night to then make this movie as like a unknown sequel to it, a good move on his part. But I mean, we'll get to Glass next. Oh, is that his next movie? Yeah. So we'll get to Glass now. I don't think it was the best ending.
The whole movie was weird, man. It's like, but I really love the colors. You know, the separation between them. Like the shot in the asylum looked really cool when they're all in that room. Mm-hmm. Glass is purple. Bruce Willis is green. He even has a green jumpsuit. And James McAvoy is yellow. It's very different in terms of like superhero colors. You know, red, blue, black. But like those three colors are very unique in my opinion. I thought it was a good choice. But yeah, the rest of the movie is.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I mean, weird comparison probably, but I'll say it reminds me of the most recent Jurassic World trilogy, where it's like, going into the third movie, like, oh, we're gonna finally get to see the dinosaurs, living with people, and then it's just not in the movie. It's kind of like with this, it's like, oh, we finally get to see, the Unbreakable characters, and James McAvoy from Split, they're in this movie together. Oh, well, they're all just locked inside an insane asylum, for most of the movie, and they do get out at the end and do some stuff, but then they all die. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, but it's all live streamed. The people know they're real now that they're all dead.
Yeah. The Bruce Willis death, I'm not usually one to get, like, legitimately disappointed or mad by character deaths, but, I mean, he's so cool and Unbreakable, and then he just gets arrested and then dies because he gets, like, drowned in a puddle. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's, like, really a waste. And it was also really weird because they kept, like, building up, like, we're going to climb to the top of this tower, and we're going to do this at the top of this building, and they keep building to it, and they just never make it out of the parking lot.
Yeah. I will say, though, I did actually enjoy the sentiment of the ending where they set up earlier with the first Superman comic. The guy says something like the first Superman comic on the cover, he's like holding a car over his head or something, and then at the end of the movie they play the live stream of the video and it shows like James McAvoy lift the car over his head, and I'm like, that's a nice little setup and payoff of like introducing superheroes in comic books versus then introducing them in the real world in this movie. It was okay, but yeah, just like you didn't have to kill them. It was just.
How did you feel about that like secret Sarah Paulson society?
It was garbage. And also too, it's like you kill off the characters. I don't care about anything else at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about Anya Taylor-Joy's character from Split, Like, it's like, they kill off the characters, and then there's like 20 minutes of explaining the whole twist with Sarah Paulson. I don't care.
Oh, yeah, they're all sitting there, like, looking around. Everyone's watching the videos on their phones. It's like, people have seen weirder shit. It's different, I'll give it that. I mean, M. Night doesn't come across as a superhero-type director, and I wanted to do his own twist on it, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it shows why Unbreakable is so good is because it was made in a time without all these superhero movies, and was more so actually, like, comics-based. Like, it was, like, taking, like, comic supervillain and hero, as to where now you try to make it, and you have to, like, make it, commentary on the superhero movies and stuff. It's just like, I'm good,
Yeah, well, they tried.
And then lastly, his newest release from 2021... Old. I don't think either of us liked this movie.
No, I hated it. It was a tough watch, performance-wise, and like ethics-wise. Like the ending was like, well, the two kids make it out because they age super fast, and it's like there's no resolution for them besides being alive. It's like, it's like there's fucking like 6-year-olds in the bodies of 50-year-olds. Like, how are they gonna exist? They don't have the maturity. I mean, sure, when they become like 16, they automatically know, like, oh, what sex is and how to do it.
Yeah, it was bad, and I was actually pretty excited for it because I saw the trailer. I think the original teaser debuted during the Super Bowl that year, so I just like saw it on TV, and you know, it's like, oh, what's up with this beach? And I'm like, oh, it's a new M Night movie, like that'll be fun, and then it just wasn't. And it's not even that it was just bad, like it was just like a slog, and it's like, oh my god, and it's like. There was some cool stuff in there, you know. Some of the character, you know, setups and payoffs of their deaths was fun. I do like the idea of like they were climbing up the mountain to try to get out, and then they just like pass out, you know. The whole setup of the location's cool, but yeah, just extremely terrible writing.
Yeah, I think best performance is M. Night, his cameo, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to take you down to this beach. Yeah, they'll take care of you down there.
And then that leads us to Knock at the Cabin, which, you know, I'm still excited for.
Really quick, shout out to, not really a movie, but M. Night's Apple TV show, Servant.
Oh, yes, yes.
I watched the first 2 seasons of that, which has Ron Weasley. And I didn't get past the second season. I think it started to get too ridiculous. But in terms of like just creepy, weird story, how this woman like lost her baby, and then she's like raising this doll in place of the baby, and like the husband's going along with it, and all the weird stuff that's happening when they hire this maid. I loved it. It was a really interesting concept. Great performances, dark. I would rewatch probably the first 2 seasons again, or at least the first one, because I just love weird ideas. And that's the thing with M. Night. You know, there's plenty of weird ideas, and he just...
Yeah, I mean, as we just gone over, it's like, I don't know if I've ever seen a movie of his where I just thought it was mediocre. I mean, they've all been really interesting, cool ideas, or they've been terrible. You know, so I'll continue to see his movies. The TV show I haven't checked out yet, but I did hear good things from you and from some other people about it. So, you know, I'd like to watch that too. But yeah, we'll see Knock at the Cabin. We'll probably post hopefully maybe we'll post the instant reaction or something after we see it. Hopefully it's good, because I feel like he's at this point again where I feel like in his second run of like coming back, where he made some good ones and then he made some bad ones.
It's coming back down.
Yeah, it's like, can you make a good one again to keep it going? Like, we'll see.
I don't know. I'm really hoping for him. I like the guy a lot. But holy shit, has he made some trash. So, but I don't know. This looks promising.